Hey everyone, I want to welcome you all to stage 2, section 2, class 2 of our live streaming and technology webinar. Today we have Brian Bachrach and Andrew King from Christ Church in Fairfax with us. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with us and to help others around the conference. I got a lot of questions after the first webinar that I did, and I did a very basic one for churches that were just starting, churches that were looking, okay, I'm ready to move away from a cell phone, time to go to something different. And then I got questions of, okay, how do I make this even better? And so I was sitting here thinking, and Brian Bachrach is on our communications board, and I said, Brian, instead of me trying to recreate the wheel, you do this every Sunday. Can I just have you join us? And so he said, yeah, as long as I can bring Andrew with me. Well, here we are. So gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you for your ministry in a local church, especially at a time like this, where I think people are now seeing how important technology is in the church, even those who may have drugged their feet along the way. So thank you, thank you, thank you. To start us out, Brian and Andrew, can you just kind of talk about what does your setup look like at Christ Church? I know that it's huge, and I drool over it when you talk about it. But can you just tell me kind of about, on a given Sunday, what are some of the things that you all use technology-wise?
So we've been streaming for
3 years.
3
well,
years.
More than that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Live campus, the actual campus, we call it an online campus, has been 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved into this new building for about 5 years ago. So we kind of brand new space, which has allowed us the flexibility to design whatever we wanted, really. So we run only contemporary worship. We don't do traditional worship here at all. It's kind of just our style. So we were thinking full drum set,
Mm-hmm.
2 electric guitars, the whole 9 yards.
Bass, keyboard.
Yeah. So we wanted to make sure that our online view reflected that. So I'm going to tell you this is not what most churches should be doing, because we're a little weird. So we run 8 different cameras Sunday. We run 3 manned cameras, so someone actually is on the cameras pointing, getting the shots.
Mm-hmm.
We run 2 robotic cameras that kind of sit in spots. We run, and I'm going to use it later on, this little GoPro style, it's called a Marshall camera, and basically it's a tiny little camera just to get kind of extra shots. So we have one in our drum cage that we use for our drummer, which looks really cool. We have one for our maybe electric player or keyboard player, just to get some extra stuff.
This big.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then we have a new roaming camera. We just started using last week.
Yeah.
Which is really scary. Think how do you describe it?
It's a DJI Ronin camera. It's a gimbal that keeps the camera on it steady no matter which way you're turning it, or it just keeps the motion very, very smooth.
So we do a lot of non-normal, most churches should not be doing stuff.
Yeah.
So from the cameras, what's your setup? So right now some people are just running it through a Mevo, and that's going through Facebook. So how do you get your product out to your congregation?
So ours it's a 12-channel switcher. It's a 12-channel version of this. And then that runs into a video encoder by a company called Bachrach. It basically, the signal comes in, hits their box, and then goes out to the web.
Okay.
Our audio then hits the same box and goes out that then hits a paid product called Church Online Platform. So it's where our video link lives and sits. It's got features kind of like you would with a Facebook chat, but a little cleaner, a little better. We can set it up ourselves. It's got a very professional, very clean look. Again, the idea being, one of our biggest ideas here is we want that everything we do to not be a distraction from worship. Nothing that we do should distract from the act of worship. And so some people like me, ADD people, if we see something going wrong, our focus gets pulled. So by having that focus, keeping on focus, not being a distraction-free product, allows us to have that clean look that we think is important. One thing I'm going to say the word product a few times, and I know that's hard to hear in the church world, but ultimately that's what it is. Mm-hmm. We're trying to design the best product for praising God that we can.
So let's back up. Boxcast. Why do you use Boxcast, the product? I know it's a product. Mm-hmm. Why do you use Boxcast instead of some of our local churches that are dipping their toes in this or using OBS? Why do you, and that's open broadcasting system for those of you who may not know what OBS is. Why are you using Boxcast?
First, let's be clear what OBS isn't. OBS is not a streaming product. OBS is simply a software encoder. It's a device to get your camera onto Facebook or onto YouTube. We don't want to go to Facebook or YouTube for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
The kind of the bigger ones for us are, again, clean look and things like that. But because of the style of music we do, Facebook and YouTube will copyright strike us in a moment's notice. Before we can get done, our church doors are closed, and that's not acceptable. So OBS is a video encoder, not a streaming product, a streaming service. Boxcast is our streaming service. So we bypass OBS because we frankly don't need them.
I'm glad you said that about Facebook, because in my first webinar, I told folks, go to Facebook, that's the easiest way to do it. But when we're looking at the next level of, okay, we've been on Facebook, we're doing good. I've had some folks say, hey, Facebook has dinged me and I have the copyright stuff. And that's, the whole process of welcome to algorithms and welcome to robots that don't realize that you have a license.
They don't care.
Welcome to speed trap cameras and not a real police officer. So that's a really good point about bringing this up, is when you're ready for the next level with Church Online that you talked about, that tool. So can you speak more on that? Is that a way that you can take a specific link and embed that into your website? Can that then go to social media? How does that piece of technology work? Or did I just?
I don't know that I understood the question.
Oh, so from Boxcast, it goes to, you said Church Online?
So Church Platform.
Do you want
Church
to
Platform.
You have more familiarity with how it's set up.
Hey guys,
Church Online
while you're answering that, I'm just going to insert a quick question here that's part of that, just to make sure that we're getting here. So Sarah is saying she tried to upload worship recording to a web page, which is, she's just taking the file and putting it on there, which I know you're going to address here in a second, to a website hosted by Weebly. Weebly would not allow it because the file was too big. Can we either make the file smaller, or what would you recommend as non-Facebook platform to upload the worship recording? And I'm just inserting this question there because I know what you're going to talk about is embedding, right? And so I think just mentioning the embedding versus trying to upload a video onto the website might be helpful.
So Sarah, let me roundabout answer your question, and we'll get to that. So we use a product called Church Online Platform. It is free. It is free. It is free. What that allows us to do is two things. First of all, we can put our Boxcast embed code, our link from them, into their service. And on Sunday mornings, it goes live automatically. Or we can upload all our videos to Vimeo. So it's YouTube, but what professionals wish YouTube was. And then we can embed that into Church Online Platform. No uploading, no anything except to Vimeo. And the Church Online Platform allows us to do both depending on what we're doing. So moving away from the local website into a Vimeo Church Online platform, Boxcast Church Online platform option is probably.
Yeah, we also went back and forth a lot previously about do we want to stick with Church Online platform? Do we want to add Facebook to it? And our conclusion was that we wanted to just stay with Church Online platform and keep our campus audience just in that one space, mainly for the chat feature, because it'd be difficult to have a lot of online hosts monitoring Facebook and Church Online and we wanted to keep everyone in one place, if that makes sense.
For sure. So Brian, Andrew, setting up the system. So I am a local church and I listened to Nick Ruxton's first webinar and we're doing well. We just got a huge donation that is allowing us to really step up our online streaming, because my church realizes that we're not going to be able to come inside of the space for a little while. What are some key pieces for me to set up my system? So that's A. Who should I have on my tech team and how many is B. And then I'm going to add another layer to this. Should I just use people in my church that are knowledgeable about this stuff and they were in technology a while ago? Or should I go with a local company?
Let's start with A.
Yeah.
What pieces should you have? I think there's 2 to 3 pieces you absolutely need. First is a camera.
A camera, yeah.
Second is a sound source. They have everything from the $200 Canon thing from Best Buy to the $800 Panasonic high-end camera. It depends on what your needs are.
Yeah. And what your budget is.
And what your budget is.
And honestly, any Best Buy camcorder these days is going to have an HDMI port on it that will allow you to send your camera video into a video switcher such as this one right here. There it is.
So as long as the camera has an HDMI port, I can use it to stream a service.
Yes.
Yes.
The next thing you need is a good audio source. So either utilizing your camera because that's what you can afford, which is totally okay, or adding your soundboard into your mix. If your church has a soundboard, church has a sound source, adding that in with microphones and things like that is your next thing. Good audio with good video with poor
bad
audio
yeah,
is useless.
is not good.
Good video with bad audio is useless. So making sure that your audio source sounds good is important. Many cameras, you can plug that audio source directly into the camera. Many switchers, like what we showed you earlier, you can plug that audio source into your switcher. If you're only running one camera, you don't need the switcher. You don't need any of this. If you decide that my desire as a church is to have different camera operator or different camera views, to have different looks, then think about multiple cameras. If that's not what you are, don't do it. It's not necessary. The next thing you really need is a provider. So again, I'm talking a specific company, Boxcast. That's who we use and who I've kind of been pushing churches to use. That allows us the ability to simply plug in a camera on one end, plug in the internet on the other end, and it works. And so that's really why I like them as a company, because there's no other work involved. I don't have to worry about OBS and making sure it's working correctly and that other company is doing what it's supposed to do. I plug in and I walk away. And that's efficient and that's easy.
Do they have good customer support if you have an oh crud moment? What you know what I'm talking about? It's Sunday morning and something's messing up a little bit.
I'm gonna nerd out for a minute. I had a thing with Boxcast when they were working on a new feature, and I kept asking them, when is the new feature going to be available? I'm a fan of the movie Spaceballs. They look at me and they go, you know that line, when will then be now? Soon. They're great. They're easy to work with. They're still a relatively small company. They've grown a lot over since March. So they really have stepped it up. Their customer service is wonderful. They're easy to use, easy to work with.
They're quick.
They're quick.
That's good. That's good. So B was, do I use somebody in the church that used to do this full time, or do I use a local company that does this all the time?
Yes.
Yeah. If your congregation has very knowledgeable people in it, in this tech world, I would say go for it. But there is a real advantage to having an outside company come in and do it for you. And the number one reason is what? They'll do it right. And there's a guarantee. If something's not working right, you can just call them and say, this isn't right, come back and fix it. So those are the two big reasons for having.
A third is training. Most of the time,
training, yes.
When you get an outside company to install your system, they're going to train you because they want to make sure that when they walk away, that you know how to use the pieces and gear that they put in.
Yeah.
But it all goes back to you and your local church. If you can't afford to do it, if that is what is preventing you from doing this, then have someone local do it. Have your guys from your church do it. If that's your hang up, then that settles it. If you can afford to, I think it's important, but it should not be your hang up.
And YouTube how-to videos are really nice.
So what, if you could put a number on your basic-ish stream, if a church were ready to go to the next level, approximately how much would it take to get them off the ground with nothing extravagant, your kind of base model that you can build off of?
Cost-wise?
Yeah, cost-wise. What are we thinking here?
5,000. What about sound?
So it really, yeah.
So my church has a sound system. We're good there, and we have someone to run that. But to get a camera, a video switcher, and Boxcast. So
I'm going to tell you again, it's going to be an it depends. Nick gets tired of that answer from me. I know. I know. So let's talk about kind of what we're using in this space. This is a space that we've designed on a very tight budget that I think is very similar to what churches will be using.
Okay.
So the first thing is our camera. We're currently using Sony.
Nope. This camera is a Canon T6i.
Just a run-of-the-mill DSLR camera. But you could use anything from a $300, $250 camera from Best Buy all the way up to a $800,000 camera. So let's say we're going to start with the basics. $200 flip-on camera.
Okay. And Boxcast is $150 a month plus. I want to say their basic is a $400 or less encoder. Okay. That's all you need to start with. If your church has a soundboard and you just want to stream, that's all you don't need the switcher. You need a camera. That's one camera, Boxcast, into the free church online platform. Free.
Did I make that clear earlier?
So we have all of the equipment. Now it's time to get our group together. What is your ideal number of people to be on your tech team that could run this any given Sunday?
If you are running that setup with a single camera and nothing else, you don't need any extra people except pre-service.
What happens if I get sick though and I can't come in and I'm the only one to run it?
Really, it's a single person operation at that point because you need someone to come in, turn the camera on.
Yeah.
And that's it. Boxcast we can schedule ahead of time. So all my worship services are scheduled through Christmas right now.
So talk about that, because that leads us to the next one of live or premiere. Why?
It depends on what you're doing. We're actually doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's funny, here at Christ Church, our music is pre-recorded and
Okay.
our message is live.
Mm-hmm.
Some weeks we're doing everything live. It's what are your church members comfortable with? If your church members are comfortable with are not comfortable coming in, you pre-record. And you do everything you can ahead of time, record it, set it up, upload it to Vimeo, and you don't even need Boxcast. You can run it off church online platform.
So go ahead, sorry.
If your church is comfortable coming in and wants to record it live, because that's what you're comfortable with, takes less video work, takes less video editing, you turn on and go, then you do it live. With Boxcast, the other nice feature is that they can watch it later. So after we record it on Sunday, they can rewatch that message later on during the week as part of the service.
So you said you do some of it pre-recorded and some of it live. That is where the video switcher comes into play to play because you have to play the pre-recorded in the live situation. So that would just be like your computer would be the input that would play the live music. Is that?
Let's you talk about the video, how you kind of do that as far as that in ProPresenter and.
Once we have, I won't get into the process of how we actually record the music, but once it's finished and we've edited it, we then take that final video file and put it into ProPresenter. ProPresenter is then run through a switcher. So if you were going to do it this way, you would need the switcher with just two inputs, one for a camera and one for the computer. And when the time comes to go live, you go to the camera, you hit the camera button. When you're going to roll the video of music, then you go to the next button. And it's really that simple.
To be clear, ProPresenter, for those who don't know what ProPresenter is PowerPoint on Christian steroids.
PowerPoint with some Jesus in there.
PowerPoint with a lot of Jesus in it.
Yeah.
That's everything which PowerPoint was.
And you answered one of my other questions was, I get a lot of questions from churches saying, I have the stream of church, but how do I put images up? How do I put, graphics and words and that sort of stuff? So again, that would be an input into the video switcher that would then go out.
That's kind of, so your question earlier was, what do I need as the very basics? And I kind of said, it's a camera and it's a stream. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of step number 2, right? So now that we have a camera and a stream, what do we do from there? Well, it's things like, okay, do I want my congregation to be able to sing at home? So using a presentation software like ProPresenter, Media Shout to input lyrics. And again, we can teach, and that's something that can be taught. But you can put that into your switcher and do what we call bottom thirds. So having your lyrics running live. It will allow you to do things like inputting video and things like that. But that's where you need the video switcher, right? Okay. So again, this A10 Mini, this little switcher that we have, keep pushing the wrong thing here. This is a $300 piece of kit. Yeah. Most video switchers are really $2,000 or more.
And so with that video switcher there, you have 4 inputs?
We have 4 inputs. I'm seeing? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And that could live, so in a world, that could live right next to your sound board. And that could be kind of your setup, is to have your video and your audio next to each other.
So here's the cool thing with all of this. So in our world, we're using this video switcher here. On my other side, we have our digital soundboard. Did you see that little box that was sitting in the middle? This guy here, this thing here?
Yes.
This is what they call a stream deck. It is a 15-button little box that I can put wherever I want to in the room with a computer. I can control my video switcher, my soundboard from anywhere in the room using a small computer.
Okay.
It takes a little work. It takes, like Andrew said, a little YouTubing, a little Googling, but I can hook that up to work anywhere in the room. If I am a single pastor by myself, if I can't have this with me and I don't have a congregation to help, I can put this little stream deck with me up front, hide it behind something, and I can push the buttons and have no one see what's going on.
And
I can run this.
And that would be like zero. That would be going 0 to 100. So that's like that.
Yeah.
We're going to take a couple steps to get there, sort of thing.
But it makes it volunteer. How do I say this? Single pastor friendly.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That's my point. Yeah.
I had a question that just blew my. Oh, what? So, we all have our common mistakes. What are your kind of common mistakes, or the things that you now look to on a Sunday to say, okay, is that on? You know, do you have any common mistakes that you could share that maybe others like us would not make because you've already made them?
Misspellings.
I'm guilty.
Timing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how important timing is. So transitions are important. You can take your Sunday morning stream with what you're doing right now on Facebook and an iPhone and clean everything up by reducing your transition times, reducing your timing. So if you get to from your message to your kid's point faster, if you get from the first song to the second song faster, that feels more connected, that feels cleaner and less distracting. We struggle sometimes, again, we're doing so many cameras that we sometimes miss one camera to the next because we didn't get our timings right.
Yeah.
But spelling, definitely spelling.
So to go along with common mistakes and that sort of stuff, do's and don'ts. Do you have any, like, make sure you do this, but don't do this?
We've been talking about more and more complicated stuff, but my answer to that, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Do what works for you, right? You don't have to try to do 10 cameras and a video switcher and things like that. That's not important. Do what works in your setting.
And I would say for me, a common mistake I make on a regular basis is when it comes to equipment, do your homework. I don't always do that thoroughly. So the mistake would come when you receive a piece of equipment, your camera, and you realize, oh, it doesn't do this, and that's what we needed to do. So you really got to read up and make sure that what you want to get is really what you need. And it seems like there's always some kind of accessory, like a cable or something that I didn't think I even needed that. There's always that kind of stuff too that happens.
And I should say, when people are doing their homework, they can reach out to us and use your resources too. I will say there, and because most likely someone in the conference already has what you're looking at, and we can help you in that form.
So 2 shameless plugs. First of all, the Board of Communications now has not only this grant that just came out, but a desire to have churches reach in and say, hey, we need some help. And we have people on the Board of Communications who are very willing to help teach and do that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. The second is we at Christ Church are also in a very similar situation. So if you ever have any questions, please reach out to Andrew and I, because we are more than happy to come out and answer whatever we can help with.
Awesome. I have 2 more questions before we get to the other ones here. And these are, really quick ones and also kind of fun ones. So first off, your online streaming, where are your viewers from? What are some of the crazy places that you have folks viewing from?
Djibouti.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Africa.
Djibouti, Africa.
Djibouti, yeah.
Germany.
Yeah.
Not Ghana. Kenya.
Mhm.
UK. We have folks from Puerto Rico, Mexico City on a regular basis. We'll have Washington State, California, all throughout the continental U.S.
Wow.
Mm.
And then to go along with that, EVC is a big thing, and counting attendance and that sort of stuff. And, small church all of a sudden has 3,000 people viewing. So we know that probably isn't correct. How do you record your attendance?
We look at our unique views on Boxcast and we multiply that by 1.5. Our logic is that while many people are watching by themselves, many people are not.
Mm-hmm.
So we use that as a lowball estimate to what we think we have viewing.
Nice.
Brian, and by the way, correct me if I'm wrong here, but as far as I know, what you're doing is you're keeping the numbers below with that multiplier what the bishop and cabinet have said is a decent way to calculate it, which I believe was 2.5.
I have no clue.
Yeah, and so actually, I like that. I think it's a much safer multiplier. And for those that are kind of asking, who cares? The truth is, tracking attendance has become really tricky for folks that are completely online with no in-presence worship experience, and so making sure that that's done in a way that's consistent is a big deal. My thought process is whatever that multiplier is, whether you're saying we're just going to count the individual viewers or we're going to do a 1.5 or a 2 or a 2.5 multiplier, keep it consistent and always use the same one. Otherwise, it's very hard for you to figure out whether you're increasing traffic or not.
Speaking of traffic and that sort of stuff, when you have your videos and there's that chat function and folks are chatting, do you have someone from staff or volunteer that is monitoring that and interacting with folks, or
we've gone beyond? So yes, plus we were one of the first 2 churches in the conference to have an additional campus called an online campus. We have a specific pastor who is dedicated to our online worship, our online small groups, all of that. He has his own team of volunteers, his own campus church, if you will, who does that. So we monitor the chat. We have the ability to take in prayer requests privately. But we also, we have a lot of fun in that chat on Sunday mornings. One of our church staff reminds us that she's having bacon every morning, for example.
Important.
Important.
So tech question here. Sometimes when I'm laying cable and stuff, I have a really annoying buzz and I have some sort of static. What could that be from?
Power.
I'm sorry, ask that again.
So sometimes when I'm plugging things in, I get a really annoying buzz or fuzz.
Oh, yeah.
So how can I stop that?
Make sure that your cables, your power cables and your video sound cables are not together.
Mm-hmm.
The number one cause is interference from cables.
Yep.
The other number one cause, that's a weird sentence. Many of our Virginia Conference churches are older, and so the wiring in there is problematic. So that is something that unfortunately is directly to your building a lot of the times. I've used things like ground kills, so just pulling the ground out. for your audio, what they call a DI box. And you can lift the ground out of your audio cables that way. But unfortunately, with some of our older buildings and our older wiring, that is just there.
Yeah.
And it's annoying.
So Brian, you had your plug. I want to plug a couple of things here before we go on to more questions. First off, you talked about the grant application for the Board of Communications. For those of you on here that may not know about that, the Board of Communications through August 31st is accepting applications for up to $1,000 in technology grant. So with that, all you do is apply, and you can find that on our website. You can reach out to me directly, and I can help point you in that direction. Dream on that, and whatever could help your church in any specific way. It's up to $1,000. So that is plug number one. Plug number two, and Brian's going to smile at this, but TechSoup. TechSoup is something that is a hidden secret that I think that we really need to get our local churches and all more involved in. And TechSoup, Brian, do you want to speak to TechSoup?
So basically what they are is a IT service for nonprofits. So reduced cost software, reduced cost hardware, used hardware. It's a really great resources for nonprofits to get lower cost products. Anything from new computers to Microsoft Office, Microsoft Windows, Adobe Cloud, a lot of those sort of resources. There's a sign up. All you have to really do is sign up and to see kind of what it is. It's a great resource. I think every church should at least look into it. It's free to sign up.
I looked on it today. They had Adobe Premiere Elements and Adobe Photoshop Elements for $27. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
So those are two things that I really wanted to plug. The other that I'll plug again is Church Online Platform. I'm just going to keep plugging that one because I think that is a very strong takeaway from this today.
Is that actually able to be shown? So real quick, this is what that looks like. I'm just going to show it off real quick. So this is kind of what that looks like. This is our pastor. I'm going to hit play because it's really awkward not having that. But this is a free resource, and it just works. It's clean. It looks good. It means I don't have to be responsible for it. I can have something that just works, and I like those words.
And that embeds directly to your website.
Yes, there is a little bit of work as far as on the beginning to link it and how that all works, but that can be another link in your website or a direct link to them.
Yeah.
So do you stay away from Facebook streaming and that sort of stuff? So how would you get traffic from your conference or from Christ Church Facebook page to your worship service? How do you get traffic there from, like, if I'm just a Joe Schmo and want to find your service, how do I go about it?
Using links from Facebook to your website.
Okay.
You would stop streaming. You would stop streaming to Facebook. So first step is be clear to your congregation. Hey, we're moving from Facebook to this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And on September 1st, we will not be streaming to Facebook anymore. We'll only be here. Using this, utilizing social media, posts on Facebook, on things like that. Another resource I should talk about is Church Motion Graphics. If you're not familiar with them, they're a graphics for your, if you're doing in-house worship and want backgrounds for your slides. But another really big thing about them is pre-created social media postings.
Mm-hmm.
So really nice Instagram, Twitter posts. If you're a church that is moving towards doing screens in your worship center, pre-made backgrounds, pre-made sermon series looks that are editable. It's $150 a year, I believe. I think it's $150 a year plus an initial $200 on top of that to get all the other stuff. So it's still pretty good long term. And again, this is coming from Christ Church, who couldn't afford this. I'm not pretending that's.
But that's why there's a grant from the Board of Communication up to $1,000. Yeah. I will just plug that again, friends.
So this having some pre-made social media so you don't have to create it, I think is also helpful.
I would also add that once you got your new fancy camera from Best Buy, you could use that to videotape your pastor or whoever, just to create a 30-second, hey, everybody, this is your pastor. We're going to be switching to this new online platform. You won't be able to see it here on Facebook anymore, but look for the links in the coming up days, and something like that.
Okay.
Friends, I'd just to point to the time here and say I'd love to get to some of the questions that are up on the Q&A. At the same time, also encourage those of you that may have some questions that you haven't posted yet on the Q&A. Feel free to go ahead and do so right now. We'll kind of try and tackle those. So Nick, let me know when y'all are ready, and we kind of can jump in here with the stuff that's popping up.
I have the Q&A open, Paulo, and I think we fixed that. I think we answered the first one there.
Yes, we did. I just wanted to make sure we talked about cables. We talked about making sure electric stuff is not with the video stuff. Sarah, if this isn't answering completely your question, because I know you'd mentioned the Mevo camera, it seems to me that the Mevo wouldn't create that buzz, but rather
Sarah, something to try with the Mevo, because it's battery operated. Try not having it plugged in and running it off the battery and see if that reduces your buzz.
Yeah,
I think that's helpful, Brian. Thank you, man. And then there's also a question of whether Vimeo is free. And Nick, maybe you can jump in there, because you've had the experience of dealing with that just in the not so far past.
Yeah, and Andrew, Brian, y'all jump in too here. Vimeo, the basic, is free. With that, there is some kind of stipulations with how many videos and gigabytes and that sort of stuff you have of upload. The higher you go, the better kind of it is, all the way up to Vimeo Producer. And Vimeo Producer works hand in hand with Mevo. And that can give you some of those overlays of graphics and that sort of stuff that you may not get elsewhere. I think it's $175 a year, but I'm not 100% positive on that.
That sounds about right.
Like Brian said, to me, Vimeo is better than YouTube. I know those are fighting words for other people. The one thing I will speak to about Vimeo that I really appreciate is you can allow your viewers to download your video. So if I want to go show church to someone who doesn't have internet capabilities at their church, I can download it and then bring my tablet over there for them to watch church. Do you all have any other, things about Vimeo that you'd like to add?
There's a lot of, so we have the $600 a year package. The reason being is once our services have been recorded, Vimeo then becomes our repository for where we keep all those past recordings. And the particular Vimeo package we have allows us to save 5 terabytes of videos, which will be good for probably the next 7 years, literally.
And I should be clear, that is a choice that we made to do it that way. That is not required for a Boxcast or anything like that. That's simply a choice that we made for how we want to do it.
Right.
And a look that we want.
Right.
And Vimeo, you can embed stuff very nicely and very easy.
Vimeo works very friendly with online platform. Works, online platform works exclusively with Vimeo. Let me rephrase that. As far as video, recorded video.
Okay.
That's super helpful. Mike had a couple questions. One of them didn't pop up in the Q&A. I'll remember to mention it, but He's bumped into something that I've bumped in as well, just looking at equipment for working from home. And he's asking, are new Mevo cameras on the market anywhere? Amazon has none listed, which I've seen that happen with cameras and with different things on different websites. So I'm not sure how to answer that.
What is our favorite store in this room? B&H?
B&H, yeah.
B&H Photo.
Yeah.
B&H Photo, if you go directly to Mevo's website, they have it.
Okay.
There you go, Mike.
And Mevo just released their new update that you can use the Mevo camera as your web camera for stuff too. So
Nice.
I haven't played with that yet, but I'm
fun.
excited.
The other question that Mike had was a bit more technical as far as doing some of this work. It seems, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here in my assumption, Mike, but you mentioned the fact that you are managing it all on your own, and that oftentimes in going from one mode, we were talking about timing when you asked this question. And oftentimes because you're managing your own stream, in trying to mess with the Mevo or with the switcher or whatever, you get distracted and it's hard to kind of pick back up. And so I want to hear what Brian and Nick and them have to say. Let me just say, as somebody who's not a technical person, but that's a user, that if you're unable to have a volunteer do that kind of work with you and for you, then you might want to consider pre-recording stuff. And then you're free to interact with people online when you're quote unquote streaming it, so or releasing it or whatever. I don't know what you call it, Brian, but when you put it up on Facebook or on YouTube, whichever channel you're using, then you can interact with people instead of being concerned about streaming or looking at the camera and so on. Any other thoughts around that?
I think I talked about this and Nick kind of backed me off rightfully. There are tools out there that you can that allow you to simplify your workflow. And I think that with Mike's question, some of this might be an offline sort of how can we help you simplify your workflow using other tools. Not being a tech person makes it hard because there's a little bit of programming with a lot of these. I would advise, contact me, contact Andrew in the conference office. We can help you kind of guide you through some of these technical sides of it, of show you what to do and help you set it up. I think the volunteer piece is hard and important. How do you get volunteers when no one feels safe coming to church?
Yeah.
How do you get volunteers when before all this happened, no one wanted to sign up for anything? I think both of those are true. And it's not easy. And I would say, Mike, that you're not alone with the volunteer side of it. You're not alone with the tech being very difficult side of it. I want to use that as an encouragement because it's not easy. Utilize YouTube. Utilize other people who you know or who you have access to answer some of your questions. One thing that we've done in this space here, because one person is running this midday prayer that we do, I have set up a device that allows me to push one button, turn the sound on, flip the switcher on, all in one button push, turn the music off in a single button push. There are devices that allow you to do that, but you're going to need help or need the knowledge to be able to do it. That's the hard part.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick, before I ask another question here.
I just want to say, Mike, I'm back, brother. So give me a call if you need me.
Mike says it's always great. Things all work great until Nick leaves, and then they stop working.
So that's why my big recommendation, if you can afford to use an outside tech company during an install, to use them, because they will provide you the training to use after they've left. That's the hard part.
And Brian, I think it's safe to name a couple that we have worked with.
Yeah.
So one out in Roanoke is, I always get them mixed up, Stage Sound. Stage Sound is who makes annual conference work with video lighting and all that. But they also install local church stuff. And they will come to Richmond and wherever. They're located in Roanoke. Another one in the Richmond area is Voight Enterprises. And Voight is local to, actually he just moved up here into the city. But he has done multiple churches as well. Could
not recommend them enough. They're really, really good people, and they care a lot about churches.
And they do the youth retreats for the conference. I know there's other businesses out there. Those are the two that we have worked with individually and have had great experience with. And they're quality work, both of them. So yeah. Paulo, if you don't have any more questions, I'm ready for the final thought.
Yeah, I have one last question, and that's simply from the viewer's perspective, which I think everybody has some input in here. So I'd love to hear from you all. But from the viewer's perspective, in a normal, what makes a good video to the viewer that's watching at home, right? In a normal worship experience, you expect some silence now and then, sometimes weird transitions. Does that work on live stream? Should the camera be on the piano player, in an instrumental piece, or somewhere else? I mean, just kind of the flow of the video and how people watch it. My take on it is, I have personally a lot less bandwidth for pauses and for awkward silences, and when I'm watching, than when I'm live. Your brain is in a different mode,
right?
You need to move, in my experience, a bit quicker and more seamless, which is a challenge. My other thought on that is, the biggest way to figure out whether it's working for people viewing it is asking the hard question of, would you view it if you were in town? Would you click on that link and would you watch it yourself? Would you spend an hour and a half of your day watching whatever is being put out there? And if the answer is no, I don't mean to be discouraging. It's just trying to figure out what kind of things you can do to remain engaging with the tech barrier between you and the audience that's watching, participating, and so on. Any other thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I'll go back to toward the beginning of our discussion when we talked about if the video is not good, but the audio is, then it's not good. If the audio is bad, vice versa. It's anytime there's something there that in the video that is distracting, basically. Like if somebody's thinking, boy, that doesn't sound good, you've immediately taken their attention away from the worship experience. And the same applies to the transitions, and any of that. And so I would agree with your thought. If it's something that is going to distract me, or if it's going to lose my interest, then you probably need to make a change.
Have someone who you trust, who can be lovingly critical, watch your video.
Yes.
Have them write out where they see those distraction points, where they see places where they can help you improve, and watch it, and watch it with them after the fact, so you can hear from someone else the changes that you need to make, and you can answer those saying, you know what, that's real. That is something I need to change. Or, you know what, I hear you, I disagree with you. But have someone you trust who can be lovingly critical of what you're doing, will be the way you increase what you want and later.
That I can't say that enough. I have my biggest critics that I joke and say they're my biggest critics, but they're the ones that, Brian, like you say, they will lovingly be like, Nick, your video is terrible. But those are the ones I respect because my wife is one of them. Laura will watch a video and she's like, hey, you need to change that. And I'm like, but why? And then she's I'm like, yeah, you're right, actually. You know, like they see something you don't see. And that's the important piece, because who else saw that but said, yeah, your video is great. So yeah. As they're filling out this little poll that Paulo has put up, Brian, Andrew, next steps, takeaway, final thought. This is your chance. This is your chance to step up on the platform and share what's on your brain about a final thought or a takeaway or next step that you may have. I'll give you the last words, so go for it.
One of our former front of house sound operators had this great quote. It was specifically for audio, but I think this works in tech. It was, make sound, keep making sound, make sound better. I think that's important for us to hear. I think that we are very critical of ourselves when we start and we immediately want to go to the next step, and we're not just doing can we keep it going? I think that works in tech too. Do tech, keep doing tech, make tech better. And then second is simplify. You don't have to be complicated. Do not be us. We are us. We do what we do because it works for how we do worship. We will not do local church worship, traditional, that style, because it doesn't work for us. And we're not going to try. In your local church, do the best you can as simply as you can and be happy. Because if you're happy with the results, if you're happy with what you're doing, your congregation will be. If you can do this simply and cleanly, that's all you need. You don't need 8 cameras. You don't need 10 operators a week. You need a camera, you need good sound, and you need to be consistent with what you're doing.
And I would say for those who are either taking first steps or second steps, content is king. You don't need to get the fanciest camera. You don't need to get to do these wild, crazy camera moves or anything like that that makes everything look real fancy. But your content, your messages, your music, the stuff that's really going to be most engaging, that's what's key in what we all do.
Thank you both so much for your time, for your expertise and your knowledge. But thank you for taking the time out of your day. You all are busy, and we really appreciate what you all do for Christ Church, what you all do for the conference, and what you do for the kingdom of God. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you all so much. We appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I'm sure it's helpful. We have here 80% of folks responding either helpful or very helpful. And what I want to do, just kind of closing in here, Brian and Andrew and Nick, is just give people sort of a next steps if they need to take next steps here. To say, number one, you can find this recording and others at vaumc.org. If you go to coronavirus resources, you will find all of the series of webinars that we've been putting out. We have several others that are getting ready to be released. One on youth ministry, particularly around mission and being involved in outreach and mission with youth during the season. One on children's ministry and providing sources online for children. We have one on racial reconciliation conversations that's coming up with some really cool guests. So keep looking at our Facebook page, website, as those get released in the next few weeks here. We'd love to hear from you all. You will find not just the recording, but Nick, if you'll make sure to touch base with Brian and Andrew and just get some of the shout outs to certain products and companies that we've worked with, or websites to go to, any of those resources. If we could list those in a PDF that people can download as a companion to this, I'm guessing this will be super helpful. to people if they haven't had a chance to take notes on that. Also, the comments that you're making here on the webinar, they get recorded as well. And so you can follow with that once you have people watching later the recording through our website. So thank you so much to all of you who joined today and participating. We sure hope that these resources were helpful to you. Super grateful for Nick for putting this together with Brian and Andrew. And I'm certain there will be other themes and topics to bring up around tech and prep, either video and audio and different things that people are dealing with way more than they had to in the past during these days. So thank you guys once again.
Absolutely.
All right. Once again, this was Crucial Crisis Conversations, and we hope to see you next time in our next webinar of the series. Goodbye, everybody.